We're not unmuted yet.
It looks like the line is still through the microphone on that. We are? We're good? We're on?
Are we? We're still muted.
I'm getting that we're good.
No, it's over here. We're good.
Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. All right, I would like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Select Board on Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 at 6 p.m. So our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us?
Sure, I will. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have nothing on the local liquor control board, so we'll go to the order of agenda, and we'll start with public comment. I have a couple quick announcements before we hear from the public. So some of you watching, some of you in the room may know this is our first regularly scheduled meeting since the town manager was placed on leave, and the board wants to be forthcoming and give you as much information as we can. As of right now, we've been advised not to comment on the situation until we reach a final resolution. So if you have questions about that, we are intending to get you as much information as we can, but we may just have to wait a little bit. The other issue, a couple meetings ago, we heard a number of residents ask questions about the enforcement of our parking ordinance. And we feel that's an issue that deserves further exploration. So we're going to put that as an agenda item either at the end of November or early December. And we're going to have Acting Chief Kelly come in as well as the police social worker so that we can discuss this issue and sort of see what kind of obstacles, issues there might be to the enforcement. So with those two things said, we will hear public comment. So we'll start with people in the room. And then people on Zoom. So if you want to come up, just go to the microphone, tell us your name and town or village of residence. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, and we'd ask that you address the select board as a whole and refrain from personal attacks.
Good evening. My name is David Briggs from White River Junction, and citizens' comments are open to the field right now, no particular subject.
Yep, if there's an item on the agenda you want to comment about, we sometimes ask that you do it then, but otherwise, you're open.
No, I'm here to revisit the question and the concerns that I have and numerous other people have regarding the closure of Gate Street Hill. And I will be advocating for it to be open to two-way traffic with no further accommodations other than the slight repositioning of the Jersey barriers that are there. We have measured the street widths in the neighborhood comprehensively, and the width of that hill is more than adequate for both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. There is no geotechnical threat to slides on that hill, and there's no danger to either pedestrian or vehicular traffic there, more than adequate. And it has been a tremendous inconvenience to those of us who live in that neighborhood. Furthermore, it's a historic neighborhood with a historic pattern, and this violates our symbiotic relationship with our village. That's my position, that's where I'll be coming from, and I will bring more of my neighbors in to support this position.
All right, thank you, Dave. Lanny.
David, do you have a copy of the report that was done by Norwich University that you could share with the board?
Be happy to do that.
I would love to have a copy of that if you could.
I'm surprised that you don't have ready access to that, but
I think it'd be worthwhile for that to be shared with the board if you wouldn't object.
no, not at all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we may have gotten it at some point, but it was probably a while ago, if we did.
I think I got it from David.
Okay.
don't
Yeah,
think
if you
you-
could send it to the select board, I think we'd all appreciate that.
Any other questions, I'd be happy to try to field them.
Okay? Tips?
I mean, I guess, I don't know if we don't want to really engage a whole discussion during public comment, but my impression was that we had already decided on the option of one-way down with pedestrian access, so that two-way was something we already decided was not the option, and that the one concern that I have had is that I'm not sure, the goal was to get a bond question on the ballot for March, but it doesn't seem like that's something that is likely to happen. So if there's,
Well, I considered those things in making the decision to come at this point. And it's my strong opinion that but for the slight relocation of the Jersey barriers, and arguably you could do it without moving them. But there's more than enough room to shift them over to give it a little bit wider passageway. Ironically, the passageway down that hill is the same width as the rest of Hillcrest Terrace. In fact, Hillcrest Terrace, where you're allowing and accommodating two-way traffic, is narrower in most places. Okay, so if you did nothing, you could still justify slow moving, which is a good thing, two-way traffic on that hill, and we'd all be accommodated. With regard to the concern from my neighbors on Fairview Terrace, which is largely about the speed of cars, that could be easily remedied, in my opinion, with the installation of two strategically located speed bumps. And some of the people, I would say, on Fairview Terrace that we met doing this latest survey fully agree with that speed is the issue, and the fact that it's two-way traffic is not real material concern, because they go two ways.
Okay, Lanny?
Yeah, question for my fellow board members. Does everybody know when David refers to Hillcrest Terrace, where that is, and then how narrow that street is? Okay, so just a reference point, so.
Pretty narrow, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very narrow.
And we go up and down that every day.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that we do is we slow down and look into the eyes of our neighbor and say, how are you? It all works out.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments in the room? Joe Major?
Oh, Dave. Joe Major, White River Junction. I first want to explain this getup I have right now. I once again made a bet with a town employee and lost, this time to Gail, who is a Montreal Canadian fan, and I am a Buffalo Sabres fan, and we bet last week who would win that game, and obviously I'm wearing the Montreal Canadian jersey, so we know who won that game. So congratulations to you, Gail. Secondly, I want to give kudos to the Parks and Rec Department for holding their trunk or treat on Saturday. Scott and his team did a tremendous job, and although the Upper Valley Aquatic Center took second in the trunk or treat, Scott and his team did a tremendous job in putting it together again for another year. I did want to speak to a couple of things concerning the budget in particular. One of those things is the pavement addendum. And in particular, only $500,000 was so far allotted to that particular line item. And it is just not enough. As many of you know, Hartford has more road than any other city in Vermont. More than Brattleboro, more than Montpelier, even more than your capital. So, 140 miles of road needs some dedication of funding. And it's up to you to do that. I'm sure that in the near future, Public Works is going to ask you for more money, and I would consider that great. 140 miles of road. 140 miles of road that has to be maintained. And we live in a climate that is not very good to roads. And and even in my tenure on the select board, we did not put enough money towards that. You can rectify that in this upcoming budget, and I implore you to do that. The other thing I want to talk to you about is pay for rank and file of the town. there was a time where you were only competing against other municipalities for employees. I was speaking to one of your colleagues, and I mentioned that I went into McDonald's. I'm not proud of that, but it did happen. I went into McDonald's and I saw a sign for $19 an hour and a list of benefits. We're not just competing against other municipalities now, we're competing against the private sector for those jobs. We have police and public works that's woefully understaffed. And we have to dedicate, whether it's retention bonuses or higher salaries, to those particular departments. So I implore you, when you look at line by line, and I know that you will revisit the budget very shortly, that you look at those line items and make the proper adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Anyone else in the room wish to comment? Okay, we'll see if anyone's on Zoom with their hands up.
So I think just with the way we have this set up, it's, I'm not a panelist anymore, so we're gonna try to, or, what is it that I need to be, like I was?
You have to be co-host, don't you?
I don't see anyone with their hands raised either way.
You should just need to be a panelist to see the participants and then see who's raising their hand.
But I don't have the I can't ask them to unmute like I usually do.
I think you need to be a co-host.
Oh, a co-host to do that,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, there it goes, okay, yeah. Okay, great.
Any
And
hands?
there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, then we will conclude public comment and go to select board comments and announcements. Let's start with Kim and make our way down.
No, not good.
Dan? No? Mary?
No.
Ally?
Nope.
Rocket?
Yeah, I sure do. I actually wanted to comment upon both of the public statements. One is just Gate Street, which I, Mr. Briggs, am fully in support of. I think, and it ties into the pavement, which is I think that it is important for us to stay in good practice of staying on top of our infrastructure, lest it can pile up into a huge problem. But I was walking Gate Street this weekend, actually, and there was a fabulous Halloween weekend here in town, but I was walking Gate Street and I was thinking about revisiting one of my fun weekend dad ideas, which is to paint the walls on Gate Street. I thought it would be such a fun, lively place for maybe to invite students out, maybe to invite community members out, and something that I just sort of wanted to explore and just kind of like revisit to this idea of being aspirational as a community in terms of what we think would be beautiful, these small things that might make our community just a nicer, livelier place to live. And that too is tied into, I was in Rutland this weekend for the parade, and they have all sorts of murals downtown, and it does really add to the culture and the spirit of that community. So I thought, White River is just as full of life, and why not look for opportunities where we can come together and do things like that. And then with staff salaries, obviously we had an extended conversation about some of this previously, but one thing with inflation being bad and maybe looking down the barrel at a recession, I was thinking about what are ways that we can solve for this, because one of the problems is that our budget cycle, it takes place 7 months before it actually kicks into place, at which point there are all sorts of trends that we don't have necessarily any control over. But what that does is it leaves our staff at the mercy of what has previously been budgeted. So we kind of have running into a timing problem. So I was brainstorming this with some people who understand economics better than I do. And one of the ideas that was floated is, and I kind of want to just float this to the select board to gestate on, is to create in some pool, whether it's unassigned funds or something, that just allows us some flexibility with staff salaries in the event that in like in this past year that we get runaway inflation that vastly in excess of what has previously been experienced in our town, that we are able to support our staff members through that fund without having to draw from other things such as paving and infrastructure. That would require us to then obviously earmark money aside, which I know might be, whether that's through cost savings or tax raises, very difficult. But in terms of preserving and protecting our staff and supporting them, especially through uncertainty in months that we can't predict, that was an idea that got floated. And if select board members, if anyone else on this board has other ideas, I would love to engage that privately or publicly, anyone in the community as well. Because I do think this is a very crucial issue that we need to make sure that, what can we do as a board? What's in our capacity to make sure that we create that sort of flexibility for support in the event that we need it? That's it for me. Thank you to the town of Hartford for having me here. Let me serve. It's a great honor.
Lanny?
No, I got nothing.
Okay, that's the end of, oh, Kim?
Can I just chime in and say, if anyone hasn't attended the VLCT budget and CIP webinar, I have the recorded version if anyone would like to buy it, because not to buy it, to have it. But one of the things that was a takeaway was very specifically that the town cannot just collect taxes to put in a thing that's not designated for something specific. In fact, they referenced that towns at one point thought they could just add a cent to the tax rate to kind of just buffer the amount of funds that were raised, and that's also not okay. So there's very specific requirements around what can be put in reserve accounts and what they can be used for and that sort of thing. So just happy to share that webinar video if anyone is interested.
Why don't you send those out, arbitrarily send them out to all of us?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I'm sure there are ways that we can create a pool, whether it's for retention, earmarked for retention bonuses, let's say, and then that could be potentially negotiated through kind of where they have the base step up and then the remainder is negotiable, that there might be some room for flexibility in that. But I don't know, any type of creative solutions to support our staff, I think would be great.
Okay, and I have no public comments or select board comments, so we'll move to appointments. Our first one is considering the appointment of Esme Rose Cole to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning November 1, 22, and ending October 31st, 25. And I think, yes.
Mr. Chairman, before we get into this, it's always been the practice of this board in the past, when we have somebody that's a new applicant for a position, to appear before the board.
Well, they're on Zoom.
Are they?
Yeah,
Did she bring-
there should be.
Oh, there she
And
is. Sorry, she was earlier.
That seems to be perfectly acceptable, so we will hear from Esme. Hello.
Oh, she's only going to be coming through your audio. Hold on, Esme, we can't hear you.
Oh,
Do you want me to unplug this?
yeah, I'm disconnected from the TV, so it's not coming through there. Unless, well, yeah.
Too late.
Hi, folks, can you?
Yep, we can hear you.
You should be able to plug back in.
We're just working on the video. We're almost there.
There we go.
So I think yes, there we go. Hello, welcome, Esme. So you're applying for an appointment to the Energy Commission. Anything you want to tell us about your interest in that or anything else? Floor is yours.
Sure. Well, thanks for including me on the agenda here. I'm, yes, excited to be applying for the commission. Over the past several months, I've been attending meetings and getting to know the projects that they've been working on. And I was surprised at the lack of knowledge I had about the amazing work that they've been doing. So I think part of my reasoning for wanting to join this commission is to spread the word amongst community members and promote more involvement in some of these awesome projects. And I saw a few openings in ways that I could support this group in the long term as well with some of these projects. So I think it seems like a pretty good fit.
Great. Any questions for Esme from the board? Lanny?
Yeah, Esme, I notice on your other hobbies or interests, you listed brownfield remediation. Can you
Yes.
tell me what you've done for brownfield remediation?
Well, I've been studying it recently, and of course, a graduate course I've been taking at University of Vermont in ecological economics. And I also helped with a grant on new technology that would help in bioremediation of brownfield sites with a product called Terra Strike. Just kind of a random snippet there, but it's just an area I think is worth exploring in terms of promoting more sustainable ecologies in combination with economic development.
So that lays out a question then, a lot of the some of the newer technologies that are out there for energy do have substances that could possibly leach into our soils. So how would you personally balance the aspect of new energies versus our environment?
That's a really good question. It's always, yes, about balancing like traditional development trajectories with ecological conservation. And I think that the latter can never be understated. I think ecological conservation has huge implications on long-term economic development. And I myself, since I would definitely need to consult the expertise if we're talking about a particular technology in terms of implementing it here in Hartford. But I think the Energy Commission is more geared toward, rather than brownfield remediation, other areas of like alternative energy sources. Whereas brownfield remediation, it is totally tied to economic development, but I don't think it's necessarily energy related.
I don't disagree with you on that, but because of the new advances in battery technologies, we're not sure what the potential side effects are of those technologies for batteries and how that will have an impact on our environment. So just a question I had and your thoughts. So
Yeah.
thank you.
And so maybe I can support the commission in providing assistance with research in terms of making sure that we're making the best decision before implementing any sort of new technology that has to do with energy efficiency or, yeah.
Thank you.
Rocket?
Hi, Esme, Rocket here. I am fully in support of your application, but I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about how, obviously you're running for state rep and engaged. I'm just wondering how like when you talk about communicating things from the Energy Commission out to the public, like what strategies or like what approaches you think might be effective? Because I agree with you that this is like a big problem in our democracy is that people don't get the information. So just curious as to if you have any ideas about that and what that might look like.
Absolutely. I think my plan ultimately is to use sort of my leverage as a state representative or pending state representative after the election next week to promote via, like, whether it be social media or, for example, we have projects going on including window dressers next week as well, which I totally encourage all of you to participate in. It should be pretty fun at the community library. And I think by like my own participation in person, along with spreading the word via social media or through these listservs, I think we can garner some more excitement around these projects. And maybe having a diversity of different people involved in these projects will also, we each have different connections that we can draw new people into this community. And I think just gaining excitement about these projects is a huge way to get more people involved and get them more aware.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Kim?
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion unless there's more questions. Yep, let's do it.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board appoint Esme Rose Cole to the Hartford Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning November 1st, 2022 and ending October 1st, 2025.
A second?
There's a second from Dan.
Can I have a friendly
You
amendment?
have Yep, sure.
Yeah, just, I think, Kim, maybe you said October 1st, but it should be October 31st, 2025? Just for the
Probably.
record.
Sorry. That's not the first
Sorry.
time I've done this.
Any discussion? Lanny?
Just a question, maybe Lana could answer this. How many members is this committee scheduled to have? I mean, is this going to fill up the committee? Or how many?
I have it open right now. They're currently, it's listed as having 2 vacancies.
So two vacancies, okay. And so this is, okay, and she was the only applicant for this position, correct? Okay, that's fine, yep, thank you.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you, Esme.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a reappointment next. This is for us to consider the reappointment of Lee Michaelides, I believe, to the Conservation Commission for a 4-year term beginning November 1st, 22 and ending October 31st, 2026. I think Lee was going to join us. He was, but he's not on. Okay, so I'd open to discussion or a motion on this one. Lanny?
Again, how many members are on this committee, and is this, was this advertised? This,
May I respond?
Yeah,
Sorry, I
absolutely.
don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not sure. So this has come up recently where I also brought this up that any vacancies, including reappointments, need to be posted. So it
Yes.
is currently listed with the term expiration dates for the members, and it is on the boards and commissions vacancy page currently. I think it hasn't been there that long, because
Okay.
this was just brought up again recently, but I think staff is putting effort into trying to keep those updated. And that's why I requested that we ask the committees that we are liaisons to make sure that their term expiration dates are included in their minutes and on their section of the website.
And I would just like to say that I talked with, well, not talked with, emailed with Matt Osborne, and he took care of that.
Lynn?
yeah, I would like to say, well, first off, thanks for doing that, getting that updated on the webpage. It would be nice to know, I assume there was no other applicants for this position. Okay, it would be
Just a
nice to know.
clarification, normally, I think, if there are other applicants, do we get them all at once and review them? I think we've done that before.
I think we have.
I remember having to choose between
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
so-
And then the other concern is that in addition to perhaps one expiring term for members on commissions, it might be worthwhile to know the length of the term that they've held the office as well. That would be worthwhile knowing. So if there's a way we could, like, put on there how many terms in office there would be.
Kim?
I think this is another thing that could be a liaison responsibility rather than put it on staff. So I think if that's something, like I send an email to the board saying, will you please ask your committees for this? You could send an email to the board saying, would you please ask your committees for this? Because ultimately, the committees are accountable for their members.
But we are responsible for the members on the committees. So we have to make sure that.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, so we have to make sure that it's inherent for us to know the longevity of members on committees. And it's also important for us to know, if there's others that are out there looking for even if there's lots of people coming on board to advance different committees. Because as I spoke before, we can't really grow as a town if we have people that are stagnant in committees for a long period of time. It does not give the diversity that we need as a town if we can't have any turnover in committees. So again, it'd be nice to know how long people have been sitting in different seats. So some way I feel it would be beneficial to the board to understand that.
Thank you, Lynn. Any discussion on Lee's application in particular?
No.
I will take a motion then. Dan?
I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Lee Michaelides to the Conservation Commission for a 4-year term beginning November 1st, 2022, ending October 31st, 2026.
I second the motion.
Discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we've reappointed Lee. That'll take us to the significant activity report. This is a little different than we've done it before, because usually it would be part of the town manager's report, and we get a little sort of highlights of things. So I don't know if, Gail, if you want to do that, or if...
I do, I have a few
Okay.
highlights.
Oh, wonderful.
The first one will be from the town clerk's office. Just a reminder, the town clerk's office will close at noon on Monday, November 7th, to set up and prepare for the election. The ballot drop box will be available until 5 p.m. on Monday, November 7th. After this time, any ballots will need to be brought to the polling location only at the Hartford High School gym at 37 Highland Avenue, White River Junction, Vermont, on election day by the voter or their designee to be counted. Ballots received after the polls close at 7 p.m. November 8th will not be counted. The next one is from Parks and Recreation. The Parks and Recreation Commission held a parks tour on the 19th. The tour covered Lyman Point, Frost Park, Kilowatt, Clifford Park, and West Hartford Community Center and the library. At Clifford Park, members of the Clifford Park Food Forest provided a tour and an update on the project. The park facilities will continue to be busy, even though most of the youth sports are over. The mild weather has been helpful, allowing residents to continue using parks and open spaces. The portable toilets in the parks will be removed prior to October 31st. All parks will remain open until the colder weather hits and snow flies. At that time, we will close the gated parks, but most locations will be open for winter public usage. Park locations are not maintained during the winter, except for the plowing of the various access roads for winter access. The last thing for Parks and Rec is staff in parks and facilities continue to transition from outdoor maintenance to the indoor operations of the WABA Ice Arena. The arena schedule this season is 7 days per week with mostly afternoon and night shifts. And our weekend and Saturday, Sunday operation consists of 12 to 16 hours each day. And the last item that we have to highlight is an update on the police chief search. We're in the second round of the search for Hartford's police chief. Applications to date, number 12. 3 applicants are in the process of virtual interviews with IACP's subject matter experts, and internet investigations are being conducted. 5 applicants are in the initial resume review phase. 3 were disqualified, and 1 is undergoing a credential review. Applications close Friday, November 4th, and IACP experts to receive additional applicants by that deadline. IACP is reviewing the interview questions posed by the Town Manager Advisory Group, and a subject matter expert will be meeting with the group prior to semifinalist interviews being conducted. IACP is also reviewing the finalist interview questions that are posed by the Town Manager. Happy to forward any questions that you may have in the significant activities report to any of the staff members.
Anyone have any questions or discussions? And Gail, so if we have a further question, we can reach out to you and you'll forward it to them. Lanny?
Do you know if we're making ice right now at the WABA?
Yes, we're open.
We're open.
We've been
They're
open, I
skating.
believe, for 2 weeks.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, thank you very much, Gail. All right, so we'll get on to the reports, motions, and ordinances. And our first is the town forest tree harvesting contract, I believe.
Thank you. My name is Matt Osborne, Town Planner. I provide staff support to the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission has been managing the town forest going back to 1998. All the select board members have been provided my memo and attachments in your packet, so I'll be hitting just the highlights and then open the floor to questions.
Great.
The forest management plan has been updated. It was updated in 1998, 2011, and 2020. And most recently, this select board, or some of the members, were part of that approval. The timber harvests were last done in 2005 and 2008. After receiving public comments, the scope of work was changed, and also the improvements necessary for the timber harvest were also changed. The approximate revenue from the timber harvest is about $31,687. That's just an estimate. The actual amount will be based on when the logs are cut, brought to the mill, and then that'll be calculated. The approximate revenue to the town would be $11,284, and that would be minus any deducted improvements. We are trying to work on ways to reduce the cost of those improvements to increase the revenue to the town. And I'm asking the select board to award a contract to Longview Forest to undertake the winter 2023 town forest timber harvest, and authorize the select board chair or vice chair to execute a contract and approve other necessary items to implement the timber harvest. And remotely, John Boughton from the Conservation Commission is attending, as well as County Forest AJ Folensby, who would be overseeing the timber harvest.
Thank you very much, Matt. Do we have any questions, Lane?
Yeah, Matt, is this in the world that we live in nowadays, is this unusual to only receive one bid?
Well, we put out a request for proposals, only received one bid, and we went out a second time. There are some requirements in this project that limit the number of foresters who can do the work. So rather than using a skidder and dragging the logs out, we'll be using a forwarder. A forwarder cuts the logs and then cuts them to length and then carries them out. So there's less damage to the forest, less erosion, less damage bumping into other trees, and not all loggers have this equipment.
So are these guys the only game in town for that, though? Is that the way I'm reading this? Or?
You know, a number of loggers who have the equipment are either located further away. They happen to be located in Heartland, so they're close by, and I'm sure that makes it more competitive for them to put in a bid on projects that are in the next town over.
Okay. And then one other thing, you probably can't answer this question, but I'm asking anyways. Where's all this timber going to?
AJ Follinsby, I believe, is remotely here. He could answer that question.
Yeah, if AJ's on, we can bring him over.
I just unmuted. AJ, if you're there and want to comment at all. Nope.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
There you go. Sorry, computer issues. Anyways, yeah. So the wood that's gonna get sold, the cut by Longview will go to local mills. I think the plan is to go, most of the pine will go to a mill in Essex. They're gonna Chrome. They're up in Essex. They can also maybe go to Britain's to be cut into boards. The pulp wood that will go into paper will go to Ticonderoga Mill in New Hampshire, or in New York. And then the firewood will be sold log length, locally, as long as we can fill those out. But the majority, and then the hardwoods will be going to Brattleboro, likely to the first optimal mill in Brattleboro.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the plan. It just would be nice to know if we could support local businesses in the upper valley, upper lower valley, when we do something like this and utilize those mills and processors. More work we can provide for people in our area, the more jobs, better off we are for the economy as a whole. So I don't know if that's something that was within our ability when we send out a bid or something of that nature, but just something to consider. Thank you.
I guess I can speak on to the lack of interest in the equipment, not touch on the equipment, but also the wood we're cutting it's good, it's pretty high value trees, but some of that pine is questionable. We're not sure how it's going to open up, like it's going to be some rot there, and that kind of deters some of the loggers that are interested. And there's really statewide not that many logging contractors with that type of equipment. There's like Longview and Heartland, and then I think that there's another guy in Bethel who I talked to personally. He had no interest in bidding. So we tried to reach out for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, discussions?
Not a question.
Just, I think a quick one. When you have the reference about reducing expenditures through use of the town's gravel contracts, does that mean, like, there's a contract for a finite amount of gravel that this project might use some, or
Yeah,
that it's
we know the volume of gravel that is needed for this project.
and that the town would need for other things that it has it contracted for?
Yeah, they have a much better price than the logging contractor, so we would get it for a much lower price.
Okay, I guess that's what I was asking. We're using the contract to like acquire more gravel at a better rate than to necessarily take away from the gravel that was already allocated for other projects. Great, thanks.
Ally?
Okay, go ahead.
Right, ready for a motion? Mr. Chair, I move that we award a contract to Longview Forest to undertake the winter 2023 town forest timber harvest and authorize the select board chair or vice chair to execute a contract and approve other necessary items to implement the timber harvest.
I second. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
Did any of this get run by the Economic Sustainability Coordinator in terms of the impacts on the environment for trucking the wood so far, most likely using diesel?
No, it did not.
Okay. I think that's important in light of our climate, environment, and not knowing where we are, so I just want us to keep in mind those things as we move forward.
Point. I'll take it.
So we have a motion by Ally and a second by Mary. Lanny?
Yeah, so I just want to make it clear, I'm supportive of authorizing this company to do this work. I was not in support of doing the logging at the town forest to start with, but I'm going to vote for this because it's the company that we have available to do the work, so.
Okay, thank you. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
I'm opposed.
Dan's opposed. So 6-1. All right, I think, Matt, you're still on for the next item, which is the Safe Routes to School grant application. And
So-
if you, yep.
Town planner, Matt Osborne. I work on transportation projects, in particular bicycle and pedestrian projects. As the Select Board has received the memo and attachments, I will be only providing highlights, and then we'll open the floor for questions. I've been working closely with DPW, the Dothan School, as well as the Two Rivers Ottauquechee Regional Commission. Dothan School has been a Safe Routes to School since 2006. I've worked with them on a couple other projects, including a scoping study and some intersection improvements, sidewalks on Gillette Street and Wilder Village. We're proposing two rectangular rapid flashing beacons to be located, one where the multi-use path crosses Christian Street. It's a pretty dangerous location. Cars come down from the hill on Christian Street, and they're going pretty fast. And I happen to bike commute along this corridor, and I see the morning commute. I see cars being stacked up at that intersection, and I've witnessed on numerous occasions cars going through the crosswalk when there's been a pedestrian or a bicyclist stopped. Rapid flashing beacons, they draw attention, they result in much safer conditions for pedestrians, a reduction in accidents, as well as much more increased visibility. We have quite a few of them in the Upper Valley. There's a couple in Norwich, there's several in Lebanon and in Hanover, and we're seeing growth in the use of rectangular rapid flashing beacons throughout the country. The other location is the right on Hartford Ave, Route 5 in Wilder Village, right by the Gillette Street intersection. That crosswalk is right on a corner, and I have witnessed numerous times people being in the crosswalk, waiting to cross, and cars going through. There is a pretty bad curve there, and I think a rapid flashing beacon would serve and make that a much safer crossing. The Safe Routes to School grant is a 100% grant. There's no local match requirement. The state will be doing all of the going out to bid and doing the planning work, so there won't be much responsibility for the town. There won't be any money going to the town. It's a $30,000 project for the two rapid flashing beacons, and that includes installation costs. The grant would require the town to accept maintenance responsibilities. There will be some cost to the town to replace the batteries. It's estimated that they would need to be replaced every 4 years with a a cost of approximately $1,400. I have talked to DPW Director Jeremy Delisle, and he will, incorporate that into his budget. And I'm asking the Select Board to approve submission of the grant application for the 2022 Safe Routes to School program and direct the Select Board Chair to sign the letter of support that is required.
Okay. Are there questions for that?
Can we get more of them?
Yeah. Seems like a great program and at very little cost to the town.
Is it limited to just those two?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that it has to be related to Dothan Brook School specifically. It's limited to Safe Routes to School that have been approved into the program.
Gotcha.
Lynn?
Is there anything we can get to help out with the bridge, the pedestrian bridge that's failing?
I guess I'm not sure.
There's a bridge, I guess, that's on the pedestrian walkway that's failing that we're gonna have to look at replacing.
Is that specific to the Dothan Brook School?
It's the walkway it's the bike path. It's the bike path at least to the school, so one would think.
Yeah, I mean, we could look into that. I guess that bridge is like 20 years old. I'm not sure what they would consider normal maintenance. But we could certainly look into it.
I would suggest maybe get with Jeremy and let him know the availability of this maybe and see if there's something you guys can work together on to help pay for the bridge repairs, because I know that's a topic that he's brought up in the past.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'll take a moment. Oh, we have a hand?
Michelle, go ahead.
Yes, hi, Michelle Gillespie, White River Junction. So, is it possible, so Dothan Brook applied for this grant, is that correct? Because I was gonna suggest, a place that I think is so dangerous is right where the Wildwood Park and Ride is, crossing over. I have seen so many kids almost get hit, standing in the crosswalk there, over and over and over again, and it's going to happen one of these days, and people tend to speed right there anyway, and I know that we do have patrols that sit, along that corridor, watching for speeders, but so many more kids. So again, I know this grant, it sounds like this grant is specific to Dothan Brook, but I would love to see somebody take the initiative to have something like that there as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Is like the high school involved in like a separate grant?
No, they're not
program?
part
No.
of the Safe Routes to School program. They would have to apply
Yeah.
and be admitted into the program.
Okay. But I think it is a good point. I know what Michelle's talking about. That can be a fairly dangerous
I go
area.
through that intersection twice a day,
Yeah.
and I agree.
Okay.
And
Something
what we
can-
could do is
Yep.
we could look at other grant programs that aren't specifically focused on a Safe Routes to Schools.
Great. Kim?
I was also going to say that, if it's $30,000 for two of them for the full installation, if there aren't grant funds, we might look at if there really are other key points in the town that those would be beneficial. We're constantly getting, we've got comments about just the traffic needing to slow along Hartford Ave and in other areas, that it might be worth, certainly if there's grant opportunities, great, but if not, might be something to consider for
Yeah.
putting on our list of
Look
things.
for ARPA too.
Yeah.
So, yep, thanks, Kim. I'll take a motion, Mary, unless you have a question.
No. I move this submission of a grant application for the 2022 Safe Routes to School program and authorize the Select Board Chair or Vice Chair to sign the letter of support and take any other action needed to accept the grant and implement the project.
I'll second.
Get a second from Dan. Any discussion on this one?
Sounds great.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. So unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
Mike,
Matt.
can I just make a point? So, understanding that we're in sort of a period of transition and requesting that Matt and Jeremy look into these fantastic ideas, is the board directing the town, is the board as a whole directing current management to ask staff to pursue that?
Good question. Was it just like, let's think about this and bring it up again? Thoughts, folks?
Maybe we could keep a list until we have a more permanent structure in place, and then we can evaluate what's a priority.
Yeah, I think that's probably a
A
good
parking lot,
idea.
if you will, for
Yep.
Got it.
projects.
I just thought if it's something out there, we could take advantage of it right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's where it creates, we've had this discussion in the past. We don't want to be having silos here, so the more
Thank you, Matt.
communication you can have, the better off you guys are. So,
Absolutely. Okay, so the budget schedule. I think, well, that would be Gail probably, right? I think, did we look at a draft of this maybe at some point?
We did, yep. So you do have a copy of it in your packet. It's
Yep.
pretty straightforward. And due to the administrative changes that we've had recently, we've had to revise the budget calendar. And I have provided you a budget calendar, and I recommend that the select board adopt the revised 2024 budget calendar as it's presented.
Thank you. Any questions for Gail or discussion amongst the board? I think we did have a chance to look at the schedule, and I think we're all somewhat in agreement that it could work. Alan?
Do you have a question? Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board adopt the revised fiscal year 2024 budget calendar as presented.
I'll second.
We got a second from Dan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Ally's beating Dan to the motions.
Sorry. I'll step back next time.
Great.
No, it's good, all right, so we've got that approved, so I think the next thing is, okay, we gotta do a signature card authorization for Bond Bank and Vermont Drinking and Clean Water Loans. I signed 16 sort of authorizations, I think, whoops, sorry, Lynn. All right, so this would, and Gail, you can just tell us what this
So again,
does.
with the administrative changes, we need to revise our signature cards for the Vermont Bond Bank and the State of Vermont drinking and clean water loan reimbursements that we have. And the recommendation is that the Select Board authorizes Mike Hoyt, the Select Board Chair, and Dan Fraser, Select Board Vice Chair, as the two authorized representatives for the existing bonds that we have and the current loans that we have.
Okay,
Just to note, I don't know if these are the ones that were printed, but in here, did you change it to 2022 because it says 2021? Okay.
I don't know if I should be making a motion
yeah,
since I'm in
maybe
here, so.
anyone else like to
Someone
make a
else
motion
can.
on this one?
Oh, I can't. Let me get back to it. Oh, thanks.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board authorize Michael Hoyt, Select Board Chair, and Dan Fraser, Select Board Vice Chair, as the two authorized representatives for all the existing bonds held at the Vermont Bond Bank and revolving loans held with the State of Vermont drinking and clean water loan programs.
I second.
we have a second from Mary. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't know if we should vote on this or not.
We might as well
You can.
abstain.
I think we'll abstain.
Yeah. And none opposed, I take it. All right, so we got 5 in favor. Dan and I are abstaining from that one.
To abstain.
Dan and Mike.
Two abstains.
Dan and Mike.
Yep. All right, I think we can postpone the break until right before we go into executive session, because we're making very good time this evening. So the next is the salt purchase, and that's Gail as well, I believe.
Correct. Jeremy Delisle is on his way in the event that there were any additional questions regarding this particular memo. However, it is pretty straightforward. So the town was notified on October 21st by VLCT that the railroad is most likely going to go on strike, and that is going to have a significant impact on many things, but most specifically our delivery of salt and salt coming into the state of Vermont. And when salt comes into the state of Vermont, their first priority goes to the state. And then all of the municipalities get what's left. And so they strongly recommended that all of the municipalities, and including the state itself, started piling up their salt sheds, because if the strike did happen, the availability would be very limited, and then once it was available, that we most likely would be at the bottom of the list, which not receiving salt, living in the Northeast Kingdom, certainly causes a major health and safety issue for our residents and everybody within the state. So as the finance director, I instructed Jeremy Delisle, the interim Public Works Director, to enter into the agreement with Cargill. They are the vendor. We did do an RFP. They were the only ones who did respond to it. Last year, we had two, which was American Rock Salt, and they chose not to put in anything this year. So what I'm asking is for the board to accept the decision that was made, awarding the bid to Cargill Salt, and also going along with that is the exception to the purchasing policy, which allowed me the authority to make that decision based on health and safety.
Are there any questions for Gail on this one?
Just a
Kim?
quick one, and sorry I didn't see this earlier. So when the recommended motion is accept the execution of the purchasing policy, should that be accept the, because we do accept you executing, but are we asking, is it the exception of the purchasing policy? Exception, okay.
Thank you.
Then in that case, I'm happy to make a motion.
Yeah, sure.
Are there other questions? Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board accept the exception of the purchasing policy 4.6 by the Finance Director, Gail Ostra, to ensure the town's ability to secure the proper materials, services in a sensitive timeframe. On October 26, 2022, the Finance Director authorized the Interim Public Works Director, Jeremy Delisle, to accept and execute the bid award by Cargill.
I'll second.
Got a second from Dan. Any discussion? Danny?
So how much are we looking at for cost for this then?
It's exactly what was budgeted. It's $170,000.
Okay, I thought I saw that, just want to make sure.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. More discussion? Do you have a question, Rocky?
Well, it just seems like a little weird that they couldn't give us any quote back. On
That American Rock Salt,
Yeah.
Not that weird.
they're the only two people that can, and we did reach out to them. I think
Yeah.
I did include a copy of their response saying
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they couldn't bid on it.
Well, it just means that they must be, everyone's trying to get in or do the same thing.
I would imagine that they
Yeah.
only have a certain amount of volume, and this, email that came out, it puts everybody in a little bit of the same situation. And again, the state of Vermont gets first dibs
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
everything.
Well, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. And then, I guess we have one more budget item, maybe without a motion, is that right, Gail?
The next item is the Select Board budget
Oh,
for
yes.
FY '24. So that there needs to be a discussion and an agreement by the board on what you would like to put in your budget for FY '24. The budget books will be being printed on Monday and be available for pickup next Wednesday. So it's important that all of you have this discussion this evening and make a decision.
Too late,
All set, Jeremy?
too late.
Was there any questions?
No,
Too late.
you're all set.
We're good.
Thank you.
Good timing.
Good night.
So, Gail, do you have handy just what we had last year on those numbers?
I do.
It's in our packet.
And I can put it up on
Oh,
the
is it in the
screen
packet?
It's his.
if you want, but it also
Oh,
is
sorry.
in the packet, correct.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
And I did hear from Mary and I did
Yep.
hear from Kim on a couple of recommendations that they had. So I won't speak for either one of you, but Kim, you had mentioned on training and advertising, and Mary, you also had commented on the training as
Okay.
well, so.
I don't know, Kim, do you want to, and then Mary, maybe
Sure,
you want to give
sure.
your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'll start with the simpler one. So the advertising had been, the actual for 21 and 22 was in the $6,500 range, but had been approved and recommended for $5,000. So I just asked the question if it was relating to like any additional like town manager search or anything like that. But it looks like Gail sent me the detail for those accounts, and it's really just the amounts primarily for advertising meetings. And so I just suggested we bump it up to 6,500 because that looks like what it's more likely to be. Do you have any thoughts?
I would recommend at a minimum 6,500. And the
65.
the reason that it's gone up so much is basically the cost for the advertising. It's not as though we're advertising more things. We have seen it town-wide, and we've actually scaled back a little bit. In, in how we do certain advertising because of the price of it.
And I presume we have like a contract with the Valley News, right? Do we have, I mean, I know there's some, not a sales rep in the room, but,
We don't receive,
No,
we do
we
not.
receive a nonprofit rate.
okay, but there isn't like a kind of a contract where you say, we're going to do 75 ads a year for this department and it would be this much? No. Do they just not do that? I mean, I think they used to do that.
That, I will speak from experience a long time ago, and I don't think it has changed. And if you are, nonprofit gets a priority rate.
For sure.
Regardless of anything else. You still get the, if you run 2 on a weekend, you might get a deal on that, but because they discount the rate so much for nonprofits, they don't sign contracts with them.
Okay, thanks.
Lynn?
Tell me what travel and meetings covers, please.
This is your budget.
I know,
That's a select
I'm looking
board.
at the $100 and I don't know why it's in there. That's why I'm asking, what was it meant to cover?
I did not write the budget for you, so I don't know what it covers. I know what it covers for the regular departments. If it covers mileage, and it covers if you are going to get lunch while you're there, or
We don't seem to have allotted any for
No.
travel and meeting in previous years.
that was new in '23.
Do we
Do
know
we need
if
that?
any money was spent from that?
There was nothing spent in '21 and '22, and '23 just started. So unless one of you submitted something, then
I would-
I guess the question, may I respond?
Go ahead.
Sorry. In 20 and 21, most of us were not going to conferences in person or anything. Some of us don't even submit for reimbursement for the actual attendance of some things, but so in theory, like if someone goes to Montpelier for a VLCT conference rather than doing it online and wants to submit for mileage, would that be an acceptable request? So, I mean, we leave it a little bit in there, or we take it out, but I mean, I think if it's something that a board member is actually eligible to submit a receipt for, then we should have a little something in there. But if, I'm not gonna squabble over $100, so I don't care either way.
Well, so
Rocket?
this is something that I'm less familiar with, but I do think, like, for example, Ted Brady at VLCT, executive director there, at Town Fair asked to be invited to different towns, so I reached out to him about coming down. Now, I don't know if VLCT has funding for that or whatever, but maybe in the event of an example like that, would that be an appropriate use of travel and meetings if we were actually inviting people to come down to meet with our board?
not the LCT members. We pay a significant amount of membership to them.
Sure,
And they
but-
do have their own budget to cover that. And that would be a decision if you wanted to reimburse somebody for travel
Okay.
to come here, mileage, et cetera.
I see. Or like maybe, what would be another example? Like a topical expert. Like I remember earlier this year there was Howard Center came down. Would that be something within the purview, or would that be more of like a,
That would be more of a contracted services,
even to come down and chat with us? Okay.
correct.
So we have nothing in contractor services, though.
So that's really, so the travel and meetings is really for select board members to be traveling elsewhere, specifically to like conferences or trainings, things like that.
Correct.
So,
Got $100 in there.
Chairman?
I mean, I don't see this being a huge issue, just leaving $100 in there or taking it out either way.
Sure.
Delaney?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with leaving it in there. I do see that we should definitely put something in there for contracted services, though. We've
But
definitely
look at the
been-
numbers over the last few years. I mean, 134, 81, it seems like actually like what someone billed, what you promised to pay
But
someone or something.
the select board has spent quite a bit this year alone on contracted services in terms of for consultants
With it.
for the board, so
But that's or is that under recruitment and training?
I
Gail?
should be
May
contracts.
I give a recommendation?
Yeah.
That you start at the top and work down through?
Yeah.
So you have
Okay.
a little bit of order when
Yeah.
you're doing it. I
So
think that way you
salaries,
can work
looks like
through
no
it.
change. We're probably good with that, right? Unless anyone wants a raise. Kim?
Nope. No, one thing I've always wondered, and if, and I guess it is also not a huge amount, but it is, it seems to be coming in around $10,000 under, in some cases. And I'm wondering if like there's any discretion that the select board has in terms of encumbering funds that we don't use from that line item, like, so at the end of the fiscal year, those funds would just go into the unassigned fund, correct?
So that's a great question. So what we did this year, when we closed out FY '22, you did have excess funding in the select board budget. And what we did is we encumbered funds for training. So you have the opportunity at the end of the fiscal year, if you make the request, when I send out the reminders, that if you would like to, you encumber funds for another line item. We wouldn't encumber it for salaries itself, but if you had another use, such as training or contracted services, you certainly could do that.
And that's what's contributed to what the current available balance is in the training?
Correct.
And recruitment, okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that, because I think that it does give us the opportunity to just have some discretion over what we have, we are entitled to as a board. I know not all board members submit for all of their meetings and that kind of thing, and so anyway, I love the idea of it going into recruitment and training, and when we get to that line, I'll revisit that.
Okay. So salaries, there's the town FICA. I don't know that looks like it's held fairly constant over the years. Advertising, everyone good with
$6,500?
I'm sorry, travel and meetings, everyone good with $100?
Sure.
Okay, and then Gail recommended we do advertising, it's $6,500. Everybody okay with that? And then we have recruitment and training, we got 9,000 in there. And Kim, did you want to speak on that?
Yeah, so on, I think it was October 18th, we talked about this request that I suggested we put 14,000 into that line item, and that was just for select board training, not for town department head leadership training.
Yep.
And considering that we do have some funds encumbered for going into, so like if we budget 9,000 in the fiscal 24 year budget, I would be fine with that, because I know that there are additional funds in there that would cover more than $9,000 worth of training. So while I asked you all to vote on a motion to put $14,000 in there, I'm comfortable, if everyone else is, leaving it at 9,000, if that seems reasonable to you.
I think that it does seem reasonable. Also included in this line item historically has been the town manager recruitment. So depending on time-wise for filling that position, currently you have encumbered funds there that would be utilized. So I just caution you when you're trying to figure out what you want to do for 24, and because you may end up using what you currently have for training and recruitment.
Good point.
So is that why the number was like 93,000 in 21?
That's why, correct.
Because it was like part of the search for
That's
town
correct.
manager. Okay. Ally, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, because I was just, so if we put 12,500, because what we voted on in that October 18th meeting, the 14,000 includes the 1,500 for the town manager evaluation facilitation. Would that be more appropriate in the contracted services line? And then therefore we'd have 12,500 for recruitment and training?
Say that again?
So on October 18th, we voted on that 14,000 amount that Kim's referencing for training for the select board, includes the DEI training, communications training, and the town manager evaluation facilitation at 1,500, which that piece, the town manager evaluation facilitation, to me feels more maybe appropriate in contracted services.
Definitely.
So just how we map out where that falls in the line item.
Yeah, I guess I would question where it is that, who made the distinction that it was training instead of a contract aspect for funding. Definitely, I agree, we should follow their contract aspect for that.
I'm fine with that. And, I mean, because whatever path has to happen for the town manager portion, that's gotta happen in fiscal year '23 anyway, so
Right.
I don't think we can, so we don't need to put that in the fiscal '24.
The reason why I brought it up is because the funds that you have available currently in that line
Oh,
will be utilized for the replacement of the town manager. So if you're expecting that you're going to have, I think it's at 20-something thousand,
Right.
that you're thinking that you're going to potentially have that much to start the
It's
'24
good.
budget with, that will be eaten up by your recruitment of a new town manager.
In that case, I would like to request that we do $1,250 in recruitment and training and $1,500 in, wait.
Contracted
Contracted
services.
services.
I'm good with that.
That does not.
How much did our
14,000.
contractor services for the,
12,500 in
12,500
training.
in training, 1,500.
1,500
Yeah.
in contract.
how much was the evaluation process we went through?
About 1,500.
15?
Yeah, that seems fine to me. Material and supplies.
Wait a minute.
What? Go ahead, Mary.
I had submitted, I was very concerned that, I mean, like all of us, I think we're concerned about inflation, and I'm concerned about, I mean, small amount of money, but at the same time, I think sometimes it shows good faith if we also feel that we're contributing to helping the situation. So I actually felt that we could afford to bring the training down by $3,000. We've got a lot of training that's going on in '23, but I just felt like, so I had asked Gail to put 6,000 instead of 9,000 on the budget. I don't know, I know that Kim probably disagrees, but I felt like we're doing a lot, and yet I still think that, just adding onto things doesn't always feel like we're doing our best to help the taxpayers in the town. So, that's what I said.
Lanny?
I guess I'm a little supportive of Mary in the aspect of, I think it's inherent upon this board to determine where the best, coin the phrase, bang for the buck is as far as training, and where we want to see that growth within the board. We have gotten a lot of email lately from the citizens in regards to things such as infrastructure projects and public safety aspects. The DEI stuff, we don't see a lot of that, although it is happening. So it's a matter, I think, of prioritizing for the board what's the training that we can get, which will allow us to serve the town of Hartford better.
Can you summarize your point? So I
What
can
I'm saying is
understand
that I think Mary's right, is that we need to not spend as much on massive amounts, just get targeted training for lesser amounts of money.
So you support what Mary's saying?
I support what Mary's saying.
Could we have a show of hands who supports 12,500? Okay, I think that goes in the budget.
We'll still, well, I mean, is this our, but will we still go over this one more time?
You're gonna go over it one more time. This is for the budget book.
Yeah, for the
Okay,
budget
so-
book.
To make sure I understood, recruitment and training is 12,500, and then the contracted services is 1,500?
That's correct.
So we're increasing, okay, good.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Roger.
May I just want to say that, Mary, I appreciated your point, and I think it's a good one.
Thank you.
So material and supplies, that looks like it's been $500. I mean,
What is it for?
any thought on that,
Is that
Gil?
for
or-
printing? Or what?
Uh,
I would
yeah,
think
it's
Yeah, I
a-
would think,
I would,
Is it stuff like printing and,
right.
yeah, pens? Do we get pens? I don't even know. Okay, is there any objection to keeping it at 500 with the note that everything's gonna come back to us at some point? Okay, and then what's up with the insurance? Is that folded into something else, or?
In fiscal year '23, it was all the property and liability insurance was consolidated into one line item.
Gotcha, okay. Is there anything more we have to look at?
That is a wrap for,
Okay, that's a wrap, and we'll see it again.
you will see it in your budget book, and then you'll have the opportunity to review it again.
Yep, that's fantastic, thank you so much. All right, commission reports, we'll start with Lanny.
Nothing?
Nothing, Rocket.
Yeah, HHPC, a couple things. There's an open seat on the commission. They are looking into renovating the railroad station south canopy, and pretty cool project that's being undertaken is the cultural heritage of White River Junction, which would include sort of a look at the architecture of former arts venues that were here in town. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, Ally, anything?
Yeah, I have a bit. So Resilient Hartford, they're continuing to pursue making the lawn of the Wilder School, which was recently renovated, potentially another site for a food forest, and also potentially in partnership with other Hartford committees and organizations. They added the climate action plan and the work that they're doing connected to that to their mission statement. And there was a good turnout for the work outing that was held at the Queechee-Abenaki Garden last month. And then also, because there's a rep from that committee who's also part of the Climate Action Steering Team, so just the Climate Action Steering Team is restarting the Solarize Hartford program. That's exciting. And then Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion, as part of the Public Information Officer and Communications Plan scoping project with Tuck School of Business. Tuck is looking for community members to meet with. They want to also visit Town Hall to get input on what community members in the town is seeking in the way of communication and how we want that to happen. So hopefully more information on if a community meeting of sorts will be held to seek input on that. And then two H-Corey members, Joe Major and Miriam Wood, were appointed to be part of the Police Chief Search Advisory Committee. And then finally, adding a student liaison. This has been in the works for a while. Adding a student liaison to the committee with full voting rights was approved by the school board. It had already been approved by us, the select board. So now that's formally going to be incorporated into the charge. And then the committee that's not yet formed yet, but that I'm liaison for, Housing and Homelessness Committee, just want to share that applications for that committee have been extended until November 4th at 5 p.m. So you still have a few more days to submit an application to the town manager's office or to email Anna Livingston if you're interested in being part of that committee.
Thanks very much, Ally.
Yeah.
How many have you got so far?
Last I checked, there were 4 or 5, I want to say. You've gotten 2?
Okay.
Huh,
Well, that's
okay,
why
so I
we're
got
extending it.
I got a different number from Tracy back in the day, so interesting.
Mary, anything from you?
I don't want to repeat what Gail so eloquently put out about the Parks and Rec. The only thing that she and Scott didn't mention is that we were lucky on our parks tour to have pizza at Clifford Park in the dark. Awesome.
Did everyone see Joe Major's outfit that day? Trunk or treat. It's pretty good. Dan, anything?
Nope.
Kim?
Design Review Committee met on Thursday and unanimously approved the site plan application for Northern Stage's proposed multi-unit dwelling and performing arts facility at 178 Gate Street. It's just one step in the process because that property is in the Design Review District, so then the application will move forward to the Planning Commission later in November.
Okay. Great. Paula, yes, it is.
Yeah, just a reminder to your committees and commissions, town report submissions are due by December 31st, and I know maybe some of them only meet once again or twice until then, so 350 words or so.
I don't have any commission
Pictures are good
reports.
too.
Thank you, Paul. I don't have any commission reports, but one of my committees just disappeared, the Climate Action Committee. So if anyone has a committee they want to sort of give to me instead,
I
we can
have
discuss
one.
it.
I only have one right
Yeah,
now too,
one.
because because the
well-
charter committee went away.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
all I have is HCC, so
Yeah.
the charter.
Charter Committee went away?
Well, because we've presented the charter to the town. So it's really not meeting, so, not meeting,
Gail,
so
yes?
I would take on something.
Can you follow up with me on the Climate Action Committee going away?
Yeah,
And give
maybe
me
it didn't.
Maybe
I
the
went away
last
from
year
it.
Past, it was different than the climate action.
Yeah, I believe CAST is like a working group under the Energy Commission.
Yeah.
But there was the Climate Action Committee that I was on, but then it,
Yeah, we had a discussion. I'd have to look back in my notes to see when exactly we had it, but we talked about the Climate Advisory Committee dissolving, and then there's still the Climate Action Steering Team, and who are also reps from other committees as well. And I think now that CAST, Climate Action Steering Team, actually being housed under the Energy Commission, and then the Climate Advisory Committee dissolving is where we landed.
So the authority is now with CAST, is that correct, to ensure that we're staying within?
And the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator too,
Who's a
yeah.
member of CAST.
Who is a
Yeah.
member of CAST and
we can always discuss further if we'd like. All right, so that's commission reports. I'd like us to do the consent agenda, then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and go into executive session. Dan?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve payroll ending 10/29/2022, approve meeting minutes of 10/18 and 10/25 of 2022, approve the AP manifest of 10/28 and 11/1/2022. Already approved select board meetings are 11/15, 11/22, and 11/29 of 2022.
I'll
Melissa?
second, and then I just have one quick question.
Sure.
Was that, the manifest that we got today, wait. It doesn't show, oh wait, are we not approving, wasn't there 11/1 payroll manifest? Or not,
The manifest for payroll is dated today, 11/1.
okay, and that, but that's not in this consent agenda?
It's on here, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is.
I'm looking at the minutes of the last meeting. So just one quick question in that manifest, were the COLA adjustments included in that?
For the police department,
Yes.
yes, they were.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll take a break till 7:32-ish.
Should we just, and then we're going to.
Then we'll come back and go into executive
Should we
session.
just
All right, we are back from our break. I will take a motion to go into executive session. Lanny?
Mr. Chairman, I move that in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, the Select Board enter into an executive session to discuss the employment, appointment, or evaluation of a public officer under the provisions of Title I, Section 313(1)(3) of the Vermont statutes, and under 1 VSA 313A1E, to discuss pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party.
Second.
Second from Dan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll go into executive session.